Across the country, rents are skyrocketing, leaving many families struggling to keep a roof over their heads. Now there's a controversial new push to tackle the growing costs by putting a freeze on rising rent. Aussie renters are in crisis, with rent rises hitting a 14-year high. In the past year, capital cities have seen rents increase 9.1%, and in regional areas it's even higher, making it harder for those communities to attract much-needed workers. It's a big problem which the Greens say needs a bold solution.
Rents are out of control in this country. We've got millions of people struggling to pay the rent, families living out of their cars, and unless the federal government act now and freeze rents, we're going to see a national crisis turn into a national tragedy.
The Greens today calling for a 2-year freeze on rent increases. With ongoing rent caps of 2% every 2 years, that would allow wage growth to catch up to rent growth.
Rent control would give short-term relief to renters, but there's potentially some big long-term costs because it basically reduces the incentive from the market for people to build more housing. And we need more housing in Australia, not less.
Unsurprisingly, the Greens' argument is one the government isn't buying or even renting.
It's not clear to me, short of nationalising property, how that could be achieved. And I haven't seen any proposal.
The government's plan to tackle the problem involves building 30,000 social and affordable houses on top of what the states are building. Not literally, of course. But the Greens say that will only tackle a fraction of the crisis, with their proposal also including an end to no grounds eviction.
Getting rid of no grounds evictions really is a no-brainer. It really should be the minimum we should be doing to allow people to make their house their home.
So could this plan lower rents? And can the Greens persuade Labor to come to the table with their own share house?
Well, you just heard from Greens MP Max Chandler-Mather, who you may also recognise as the guy who caused a stir by daring to ditch the tie in Parliament. Now he's stirring up controversy again with this proposal. Max, this does sound vaguely like socialism, possibly even communism. How would it work in practice?
Well, yeah, what we're proposing today is a 2-year national rent freeze because rents are out of control. In fact, they've increased 7 times faster than wages since the pandemic began. I wouldn't call it socialism or communism. I'd call it what's been done around the world and worked. In fact, Victoria froze rents for 6 months during the pandemic. And what we're saying is that right now we're in a worse housing crisis than we were during the pandemic. And so we need an equally urgent national response to rents. Now, it's a pretty reasonable proposal because even under our plan, if you take 2020 as the baseline at the start of the pandemic, wages don't catch up to rents until 2029. And I think that's a pretty moderate proposal for what is a massive national crisis at the moment. You know, in British Columbia and in Canada, they cap rents this year to 1.5%. We know in Scotland they've got similar sort of rent caps. We know in New York they have rent controls. Hardly I would describe America as a communist country, but around the world they've recognised that renters need some form of protection against the ravages of our cost of living crisis at the moment.
Max, you call it moderate, I call it mad. What do you say to landlords who over the next 2 years are going to have an increase in their mortgage payments, council rates are going up above inflation, repairs on any rental properties are going up, it's very hard to get tradesmen. They're expected just to wear this increase in cost and no rent going up. But they're going to bail on the market. They're going to sell their rental properties and you're going to collapse the real estate market. It's mad, mate.
Well, I don't think the real estate market collapsed in Victoria when they froze rents.
Well, I'm not sure you're right on that. I don't think they did freeze all rents for 6 months.
There was a 6-month rent freeze in Victoria, but similarly in British Columbia or in New York or in Scotland...
Well, we're not in British Columbia or New York or Scotland. We're in Australia. We've got a rental system that works.
That's true.
There's a lot of great landlords who there's even landlords who, during COVID, made the rent cheaper for people because they wanted to look after good tenants. You're trying to blow up a system that actually works.
I think you just need to talk to the 2.7 million renters who are in severe rental stress at the moment and ask them if the housing market is working. We're not suggesting that renters don't pay any rent for the next 2 years. Over the last 12 months, rents have gone up by 17%. All we're saying is we freeze it at that rate for the next 2 years. So if the landlord has increased their rent from $450 to $550 bucks a week, as an example, they still get to charge $550 every week for the next 2 years. We're just saying we don't want any more increases so wages have a chance to catch up.
But you're saying more than that. You're saying more than that. You're going to cap rental increases at 2% for the every second year for 24 months.
Yeah,
that's your policy.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you're going to be you're going to
And
put the Greens in charge of the real estate market of Australia. You're going to be our landlord. I don't want you as a landlord.
I'm not sure you understand the concept of a landlord. You're not. The federal government wouldn't own every home.
No, but you're setting.
I see what you're trying to do. You're trying to be a bit provocative.
You're setting the rents. You are setting the rents. So you're a quasi landlord, mate. Don't you understand how this system works?
But you're aware that in lots of certain sectors of the economy, prices are set in some way or regulated in some way, right? Like our power bills are in some way regulated. Down in the ACT, they've already capped rents at inflation, just above inflation, which is, also a much better policy than what we have now. I find it sort of bizarre that you think that any country in the world that has any sort of rent regulation is the government becoming the landlord for everyone.
Max, first you got rid of ties, now you're getting rid of landlords. What's next on your hit list? For privacy's sake, please don't say golfers.
Yeah, leaf blowers would probably be high on my list.
I've got a great leaf blower. It's really noisy.
Yeah, I'm sure you do.
Max, thanks for being a good sport. Appreciate your time tonight.
Thanks for having me.